Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Hello and welcome to the State of the Economy podcast. I am Ronendra Singh. The auto sector in India is a big industry worth more than $100 billion and contributes around 8% of the country's total export and accounts for 7.1% of the India's GDP. The COVID pandemic had played some spoilsport to the auto industry in the last 2-3 years. However, despite the challenges, the sector, touted to be one of the key drivers of the economy, is coming back to normalcy and, in fact, reported a phenomenal growth in 2022. In this episode, I talked to Mr. RC Bhargava, the auto industry veteran and also the chairman of India's largest passenger vehicles manufacturer, Maruti Suzuki India, to understand how the auto industry is recovering and what are the challenges it is facing currently.
Do you think the auto industry is on a rebound mode, Mr. Bhargav, after a successful year?
Well, overall, I think the growth of the auto industry in India has slowed down a lot in the previous decade. Last 4 years, the whole story of COVID and the semiconductor issues and all that. This 22-23, the industry just about got ahead of what it was doing in the previous best year, which was 4 years ago. So now we are where we were roughly 4 years ago.
Right.
But the signs are that going forward, the industry will grow now at about 5 to 6% a year as a whole.
Okay. And talking about semiconductor shortage, sir, what is the current situation and when do we see the normalcy to come back in the industry? Because right now, some of them are saying there has been a problem again, there has been a shortage, but some are saying like now it will come back in the next few months. So what is your take on that?
There are still problems in some isolated areas. It's not a widespread problem, not as big as it used to be. It's improved significantly. But yes, there are some areas where there are shortages of certain kinds of semiconductors. In Maruti, we expect that after the second quarter of this year, which means from October onwards, we should be more or less on a normal footing as far as semiconductors are concerned.
And is it because the people are now going for the mid or the top end models rather than the the base variants? Is it so?
I think during the COVID period, the industry suffered certain setbacks and expansions did not take place. The entire demand on the semiconductor industry, on the other hand, grew very fast because as you know, in this period, there was a great expansion of use of technology for communication and meetings and various things.
Right.
And the requirement of various devices, communication systems, all of this went up much faster than what it had been in the past.
Right.
As a result, I think the industry was not able to cope up with the growing demand.
Okay.
And there have been, of course, technology changes. Some of the older legacy chips, there are problems there. And I think there's an issue also of better coordination between the manufacturers and the tier one vendors and the designers of cars on getting to understand these things well in advance, because the semiconductor industry needs apparently 2 to 3 years lead time to be sure of meeting demands. As I said, I think the semiconductor problem probably from the second half of this year will be significantly better.
Okay.
No more manufacturing units are coming online.
All right. Bhargav, you also recently said that there is an affordability issue with the small cars in the rural and smaller towns. So how do you think that can be rectified, or do you think that will also hamper the growth in the industry, in the car industry?
I think we've seen over the last 4 years now, Ronendra, that for various reasons, the demand of cars in that lower segment, the entry-level segment and just above the entry-level segment, has slowed down significantly. And as a result, as you know, some car manufacturers have already gone out of production on that area. We have had to slow down our production there, and Maruti also now is looking at the longer term as to what should be our capacity planning and therefore facilities, organization and such things in the market as we go forward. The broad view seems to be that the growth of the small car market, the low end of the market, will be significantly slower than what it had been in the past, whereas the market for the bigger and the more expensive cars will continue to grow. So overall, there will be growth of 4 to 5%. We will not get back to the double-digit growth which we were having in this period 2000-2010. I don't think that era is coming back soon unless there are, again, some changes in the entire system.
Okay. But is it to do with the BS6 norms coming in and also people preferring SUV segment as much than the other segments?
It's not that. The people who are buying the small cars are the people who are upgrading from two-wheelers. That segment of population has not gone away anyway. They're still very much there. They haven't become suddenly so affluent that from a two-wheeler they will start upgrading to an SUV.
Right.
So that segment has lost the ability to buy cars in the same speed and the same time as they were upgrading earlier. That segment has slowed down.
Okay.
The other segment has continued to grow. So relatively, yes, the SUV segment is going faster. But as I said, remember earlier on, volumes were being driven by the smaller segment. That has dropped out, and that is why the overall growth rate has come down from the earlier figures to what I'm saying, that we may get just about 5 or 6% a year. We have added 4 new SUVs.
Right.
In the next few years, we'll be continuously adding the EVs. They're all in the bigger segment. They're all in the more expensive segment.
Right. But what about on the experience side? Maruti has more of experience in selling smaller cars. But when it comes to bigger cars, especially with partnership with Toyota, where the 7-seater, the equivalent of high cross is coming up in the next 2 months, as you recently said, would there be...
If you're adding such vehicles, but they're not going to be high volume vehicles.
Okay.
You know, the smaller segment has slowed down, but that doesn't mean the volumes have become very small or insignificant. The volumes still run into lakhs and lakhs of cars a year.
Correct. Okay, talking about EVs, sir, as the electric vehicle sales are now picking up, and also charging station, charging infrastructure is also picking up. Do you think, apart from charging infrastructure, there are still some hiccups which is not helping to grow the sector in the EV segment?
The EV segment is in numbers not growing too fast compared to the rest of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as if the EV segment has started galloping ahead, but it's growing. As we continue to grow, all of us will continue to add a model in the EV segment. But as government has also said, there are other options and other alternative fuels which also government is encouraging.
Right.
You know, you've seen the recent report which was mentioned in the press about alternative fuels also being important for the objective of carbon neutrality in India. And I think this policy which is, or direction which this policy is moving, is the correct direction. I think if we are pragmatic, as we seem to be getting more and more pragmatic in this area, we move and use all our specific resources in India to generate clean energy, right, and use that clean energy in the transportation sector, I think we'll do better than many other countries.
But when it comes to vehicles like hybrids or CNGs, there is no policy on rebate or some cess on taxes as in EVs.
Not on CNG, government is keen on encouraging CNG, and As you know, recently they reduced the prices of CNG by about almost up to 8 rupees a kg, and that has made an impact in the market. And this report that I was telling about, which was chaired by the ex-secretary of the Petroleum Ministry, Tarun Kapoor, they have recommended hybrids as one of the technologies which will be there for the next some years till we get into cleaner forms of energy.
Right. There was a report also on that, sir, that diesel will go away by 2027. Do you think that will hamper again the growth of the industry because the larger vehicles, whether it's trucks or buses segment, diesel is still prevalent, and if there is no diesel vehicle, then how do we see the growth by 2030 or so?
Well, I don't know whether this policy about diesel being phased out in the bigger cities from 27 is going to happen or not happen. In any case, diesel cars are becoming more expensive because of the regulatory requirements of emission and on-road testing and such things. I don't think diesel is going to be a major driver of growth in the coming years anyway.
Okay. So just wanted to also know on your comment on the recent comments by Transport Minister Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, where he said India can become the world's largest automobile market in the next 5 years. Is that possible, sir? Or do you think, or what kind of challenges do you see in achieving that?
We are now number 3.
Correct.
We have overtaken Japan.
Right.
And the two ahead of us are the US and China. China is very much ahead of us at the moment, and ahead of the US also for that matter. And the Chinese economy, the Chinese population, the economy is much ahead of ours. And the people, number of population of China and India are now comparable.
Right.
So I don't think that overtaking China in terms of numbers of cars sold. I don't think, I haven't seen this statement, by the way, which says that we will become the largest car market in the world.
Not car, sir. It was on the overall automobile, he said. Not only car, the whole overall automobile.
But then if you include two-wheelers, we are way ahead.
Right.
Our two-wheelers each year are 25 million two-wheelers, 22 million two-wheelers itself. So they will grow. So that way I think it can happen. Yes, sure.
Okay. And also a lot of announcements in the recent past, in fact in the last 1 week, where Hyundai has also announced to invest around 20,000 crore and MG India also around 5,000 crore. And of course, Maruti has already announced the new investments in Kharkhoda and another one which is coming up soon.
Yeah.
So do you think that we are on the right track to even become number one in the overall global market?
India is definitely now in the top echelons of manufacturing countries in the world. And I think more and more manufacturing is coming into India. And I think India has the potential of substantially increasing manufactured exports out of India.
Right.
In the car segment alone, Ronendra, our current year's exports, we will be probably around 2.7 lakhs or something. But the numbers could be much higher because we are restricted this year still with the semiconductors and production capacities and such things. But by 2030, we are expecting our exports to go up to almost 3 times to 750 to 800,000 cars. And if that's happening to us, that will happen to other manufacturers also. So I think India will become a very large exporter of cars. Mm-hmm. That requires investments.
Right. To sum up, sir, you think there is an immense opportunity to grow in the Indian market, and also by October, and we have a clearer picture on the semiconductor shortage, right, sir?
I think growth opportunities in India are only going to keep increasing, not only in the car segment, but in almost every segment. And I think it's up to now Indian industry and industrialists and entrepreneurs to take advantage of the growth opportunities that are coming up.
Right. All right, Bhargava-san. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being in this podcast.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.